Good morning, everybody. This is the final episode of Sit the Dog or Walk the Dog. I don't know. But no, it's Walk the Dog, Season 2, Episode 25. This might be a shorter episode. I'm on my last day here at Riot. It's Thursday afternoon. I'm trying to squeeze this in between a couple meetings. It's been a busy day. It's been a busy 2 weeks. I'm also really tired. It's just been a lot. This trip's been a lot. I'm ready to go home. But I still wanted to make sure you guys had an episode for Friday and talk about some things. Really big shout out to all the guests who were willing to come on and talk. Sometimes being out there and answering questions like that was fun, but hopefully everybody enjoyed getting to see some perspectives that aren't just me. So I don't know. Hopefully we can find more opportunities to do stuff like that in the future. Maybe even make specific questions for people that you've seen, things like that. So hopefully we do that in the future. But otherwise, yeah, like I said, hopefully you appreciated this. Starting next week, I'll be back to walking around in my office. I'll be bringing all of your guys' questions and answering those. That'll be good. So, yeah. As far as things I do want to talk about, let's see. First off, we have the live meta. Right now, what we're seeing is the positive side is like there's no like S tier comps. There's no anything that's broken or anything like that. There's a lot of different lines you can play. I think there is still a gap between the best and the second best. Like the Yunaras and Vanes of the world are definitely like a little bit a tier above in terms of power compared to like your Bilgewaters or your 3 costs, right? 3 cost reroll not really working. And obviously, I'm sort of alluding to some spoilers of what's going to happen in the patch. You'll be seeing this on Friday, and yeah, people are making faces as I record this and walk by the way. But you'll see this on Friday. The patch rundown will be on Sunday after the tournament concludes. So that'll happen. So I'm alluding to some things here, but 3 cost will need some help. I also think one of the big things, obviously the hot topic right now on the internet is the 4 cost reroll meta. The fact that when all the players agree that the best strategy is to stay level 8 and 4 cost reroll, well, it turns out they all start to hit, or at least one person hits. And you can confirmation bias into like, well, if 7 players try it and 1 player hits, but 1 player hits every game, is it happening 100% of the time? Which is definitely not something we want regardless. Certainly not at the pro level, right? Like we don't want the pro scene to devolve. And talking to the live team about it, I think, and again, spoilers for the patch note rundowns here, but I think the level 8 to level 9 change was a mistake, and so I think we're undoing that next patch. So it'll go back to 68 XP. But it's really interesting because I've been reading a lot of the threads on people, and everyone has different takes on like, how did we get here? What's going on? What do we need to nerf? Is it all econ augments? Is it because level 8 is harder or easier? And it's really interesting because if you sit and think through some of the ramifications of the different things that are happening, you can really make some interesting conclusions. So, for example, let's say we brought level 8 back to 48 XP, 12 less than it used to be. Well, in order to do that, we would also have to lower the 4 cost odds on level 8. But I think you guys remember set 14 and 15, where when we do that, okay, you reach level 8 and you do your roll down and you just don't hit any 4 costs. And that feels really bad, right? At least right now, when you hit level 8, when you've got your 30 gold on 4-2, it feels like you can actually hit, your Rift Herald 2 and your Kaisa 2 and things like that. And people actually get to experience their powerful armies rather than kind of just low rolling and being out and dying. So I don't know that we want to necessarily go back to where we were before, but there is definitely an interesting thing here of like, where is the line? Is it in the right place, right? I was talking to Kent about this, and I was like, if we today moved level 8 back to 48 XP, I actually think what we start to see is, again, people are hitting level 8 on 3-5 with econ augments, right? And then we also started talking about, if you look at the econ augments, like which ones are truly overpowered, right? Like a lot of people like to say, like, I can't win without an econ augment, but which ones are truly out of line? Kent was talking about a future where we need to do an augment deflation pass. But what's really interesting, if you're going to consider that, is you have to think about your baseline. Where is your baseline augment right now? So, for example, as a silver augment, I believe item grab bag is the perfect baseline in terms of item power. And I don't think we're going to change that, right? Do we want to deflate item grab bag to only be one component and some gold? I kind of doubt it. I mean, we kind of already have that, right? Like iron assets is basically this. But item grab bag feels like a nice solid silver that I don't think we want to be nerfing. Okay, well, so compared to item grab bag, what does placebo look like that is relative to item grab bag? Right now, placebo is 8 gold. Is that a problem? Is it supposed to be 7? Is it supposed to be 6? If it's 6 gold, do you ever take placebo over item grab bag? Probably not. If it's 8 gold, maybe you do, right? And I'm using these examples because these are really simple and easy to understand examples that illustrate the wider point as you start to go to the more complicated augments, right? If placebo is balanced at 8 gold, well, then other econ augments have to be the same. Kent and I were talking about placebo plus, which is 14 gold. Is 14 gold balanced? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe it's supposed to be 13. Maybe it's supposed to be 12. What about rolling for days? Rolling for days is 10 rerolls. 10 rerolls is 20 gold of value, but it's not 20 gold, right? You can't build econ off of it. Does that need to be nerfed? If it does, if it's down to 8 rerolls, you're never taking that over placebo. If it's 9 rerolls, are you taking that over placebo? Right? Like these are the kind of conversations. So as you guys are giving us feedback around augments, if you frame it that way, I think you'll have a more constructive conversation. Because the other thing too is I remember a world where not, 1 or 2 sets ago, where a lot of our pro players were talking about how if you didn't roll a good combat augment on 4-2, you were dead, right? Because combat augments were the way to go and all the econ augments were terrible. And so perception can change as players, change their strategies. It could also mean that we need to change values relative to everything else, right? A good example of this, and again, I'm holding us accountable here, is like if econ, because it's harder to get to 8, econ is more valuable, so the relative power compared to combat is less, and therefore actually we're in a world where item grab bag isn't even good now, which again, stats don't say, but you could make that argument, right? And so as we think these through, we're just going to have to be really clear what's our intended line, what's our average power curve, things like that. Part of it is also even like there are complicated parts within the set, right? Where, having triple econ wouldn't necessarily be a problem because you'd fall off in power, except for the fact we have Baron, which rewards you for running triple econ, and so now all of a sudden there's a payout to triple econ. We also talked about like distribution methods. I know a common thing players always ask us for is like, well, every augment, shouldn't there be like 1 combat, 1 econ, and 1 item or something like that? And, I'm always opposed to that because it leads to games being pretty stagnant. But maybe there's a world where if you take an econ augment, the odds of seeing another econ augment go down, right? So that over time you get like 1 of each on average. Likewise, if you didn't get an econ augment earlier, you might see it later, right? You could do some things like that. And so all of this is to say I'm sharing this with you that it's not like we don't see the problem. It's not like we're not thinking about it, but we also don't want to rush to a crazy solve that ends up doing more harm than good. And we're also trying to take these forward into future sets, right? Where it's like, okay, we're seeing this issue with 3-star 4-cost reroll now. How do we avoid it having it happen in 17? Will it be a problem in 17? Is there something we can do here that's more systemic? Are we off on certain things, right? And so that's the way we kind of approach our general problem solving when it comes to these things. Now, again, all of this is to say, is the tournament this weekend going to have a bunch of 3-star 4-costs? Probably, because the other thing I've learned about TFT is that when players believe something to be the meta, they will do it until proven otherwise, right? And so unless one of our players has some crazy curveball where they're ready to, pull out some fast 9 strat that no one knows about, which is very unlikely, then I think we end up in a world where you're going to see that a lot. So I'm not naive enough to think that that's not what we're going to see. So, but yeah, so then patch rundown will happen Sunday after the tournament ends. Monday morning meta report on Monday, where we get to see the results of the B patch and what things change there. And then Walk the Dog will resume normally on Tuesday. So, and like I said, it'll be more about questions and things like that. The other thing I'll say is I know I need to place. I've had a lot of people be like, where do you ask questions? We put them on the Discord. Well, I don't use Discord. Where can I submit questions? I'm going to try to set up like a Google form and then tweet it out so that people can just submit questions there. That way I can get a wider variety of questions. I try to read some of them from like Twitter and YouTube and stuff like that, but they get lost pretty quick. So I would love to find a way for you guys to ask more questions. That way you could even talk about like who you want to ask the questions and things like that. Hopefully give more opportunity though, because like I said, generally the response to bringing back Walk the Dog has been really positive. So hopefully I can do more of this in the future. And yeah, so I think that's mostly what I had for today. Like I said, it's I think the only other thing I wanted to talk about really briefly is, we're at the time where we did our yearly performance reviews. And so, it's one of those corporate things that when you have a job, you have to hear how you did for the year. And so I have 5 direct reports. And I will say, and I just wanted to share that I'm sort of like blessed because I had 5 reports that frankly I could give pretty solid performance reviews to, where it's like, look, here are the things you're awesome at. You had a great year. TFT wouldn't have been the same without you. Thank you for all your help. Good job. And then here are some things to improve. Not that you're bad at them, but it's just like, hey, as you move forward in your career, here are the things we want you to get better at. And so I'm lucky, right? Like I count myself very fortunate that I just get to go out there and tell people, hey, here's all the stuff you're doing great at. Good stuff. Some of the people, Kent and Giovanni, for example, who you saw on these Walk the Dog episodes were people I got to give reviews to. So that was really cool. But, it's also the kind of thing that it's really important for each person. And, a lot of what you get in your review can really determine how you feel about your job, how you feel about your company, and things like that. And so it was one of those things that I had to put a lot of time into to make sure that, feels genuine, feels like you're giving it your all. But when you're doing that, that means you're not working on TFT, and so I think that's one of the harder things about the corporate world sometimes is that you have to do not just the work on the game all the time, but you have to do the people management, the relationship building, the tough conversations and things like that. So definitely interesting. But did want to talk about that's a thing that, I had to do while I was here in addition to all the future land work. So yeah, but that's done. That's over. Everyone generally seemed pretty happy with theirs. Honestly, couldn't have gone better. So yeah. Okay, cool. Like I said, I had to make this one quick because I've got some other stuff to do. There's a big meeting that's happening in like 10 minutes. But I wanted to make sure I got this to you guys. By the time you watch this, I'll be on a plane heading home, which, like I said, I'm really looking forward to. So, yeah, a little tired, but I promise, energetic Mort will be back answering questions. Just give me a day to like decompress. I miss my family. So, yeah. All right, cool. Hopefully this worked. Sorry it was short. That's going to do it for me. Until next week, take it easy.